This is the longest squid in the world. It's called the giant squid, and it can stretch up to 45 feet long, which is longer than a school bus. Everyone's heard of the giant squids from stories of krakens or other deep-sea monsters. But what most people don't know is the giant squid isn't the largest squid in the world, because evolution decided to create a squid that, while not longer, is way heavier than the giant squid, meaning each of these massive creatures has over double the total squid in its body. This creature is none other than the colossal squid. And while you might think there's some closely related species to giant squids, they're actually not related at all. Not only are they not the same species, but they're not the same genus and not even part of the same family. Their first shared level of classification is their order, with both squids being part of Oegopsida, deep-sea squids that live in the open ocean. Yet these two squids are the only two in the world that have reached such massive size to truly be considered giant, or well, colossal. All other large squids are either long but weigh almost nothing, or are thick fellas, being short and still only reaching a max of 150 pounds. What makes it even weirder is that these squids live in completely different parts of the world, and have never even interacted once. They don't even know each other exists. How is this possible that two absolutely massive squid species evolved completely separately in totally different oceans without ever crossing paths? And what would it take for a third truly gigantic squid to be created? Even though these are the only two truly massive squids in the world, if you actually take a close look, these squids are totally, unmistakably different to any guy who knows a thing or two about squids. Both these squids do share a common ancestor, likely a primitive Oegopsid squid that lived around 60 to 100 million years ago, near the end of the Cretaceous period. But in reality, we can't confirm this because we don't really know anything about ancient squids. Squids aren't necessarily the best at leaving fossil evidence, namely because of how squishy they are. Squids don't have any bones, so all that soft tissue is usually gone after just a few weeks, let alone lasting 100 million years. There is one part of the squid that can remain, which is its beak, essentially the only hard part of the squid. At some point after the age of the dinosaurs, the ancient Oegopsid lineage divided into separate families. One branch led to the Archaeoteuthidea, the group that would eventually create the giant squid, while another evolved into the Cranchiae, the glass squids, which include the colossal squid. What's interesting is that while both species ended up enormous, they didn't inherit their size from a shared giant ancestor. Instead, they each evolved gigantism independently. This is a textbook example of what scientists call convergent evolution. What that means is essentially two unrelated species start to evolve similar structures because they're adapting to the same environment or the same challenge. They aren't copying each other, but nature is just evolving to literally create the same animal twice. Evolution is basically following the rule of, if it works, don't change it. But you're probably wondering, if they're a case of convergent evolution, why do they still have so many differences? Colossals live exclusively in the deepest parts of the Antarctic oceans, whereas giant squids are usually more in temperate oceans and much more widely spread out. Giant squids got large through deep-sea gigantism, the phenomenon where animals living in the high-pressure, low-light depths of the ocean tend to grow larger. Colossal squids also live deep, actually even deeper than giant squids, but most of their size is due to a different effect called polar gigantism, the phenomenon where animals in cold water evolve to grow larger. So does this even count as convergent evolution if their gigantism is for different reasons? Well, yes, but with a twist. It's still a case of convergent evolution since they both shared a common ancestor and developed gigantism. But this is also partly because colossal squids were influenced by deep-sea gigantism too. Even though polar gigantism played the biggest role in colossals, they still live in the deep sea, so the pressures of the deep shape their size as well. And that's exactly why it's convergent evolution, since they both converged to become giants. Gigantism actually solves a ton of problems for them. A larger body conserves energy more efficiently, stores oxygen for longer dives, regulates temperature better in the cold, and most obviously scares off any predators and turns them into the predator. But since their environments aren't exactly the same, they didn't end up completely identical. Giant squid's tentacles reach much further. However, the average one is only about 500 pounds. But compared to colossals, they're less than half the weight. Some of the biggest colossals are reaching up to 1,300 pounds, making them by far the heaviest invertebrate on the Earth with 0 exceptions. The giant squid is long, sleek, and designed to be fast. Colossal squids, on the other hand, are much more chunky, and even though they're still long, they're shaped much more like a tank. Giant squids can reach speeds of 25 miles per hour using jet propulsion. Colossal squids also have this ability. But since they're so massive, or should I say colossal, they're likely not as fast and only reach about 12 miles per hour. So why did they evolve to have these differences? Their environments are still different. The giant squid evolved in open, temperate oceans, areas where prey can move fast. To survive there, being quick mattered more than being tough. Its long, aerodynamic body and lightweight frame makes it amazing for hunting. Speed and reach are its entire strategy. Giant squids have suction cups with tiny saw-like teeth on them, obviously specialized for gripping slippery prey, since they eat fast fish like grenadiers or even other smaller giant squids. But in the total opposite environment, the colossal squid, energy conservation is everything in the Antarctic. So instead of wasting energy chasing things, the colossal evolved to endure. Its thick, muscular body helps retain heat even better and store more energy. They don't really chase or hunt like giant squids. The rotating hooks on its tentacles are designed to lock onto something once, like a giant Antarctic toothfish, and make sure it doesn't escape. Both the giant squid and the colossal squid evolved beaks for the same fundamental reason. Survival in the deep sea demands a compact, powerful, and efficient way to kill and eat. Down there, prey often has thick scales or armor, and there's no solid surface to pin it against since they live in the open ocean. The beak is made of chitin, the same material as insect shells, but layered and hardened into something stronger than bone. The sharp upper and lower halves work like a parrot's beak, slicing through muscle and bone with almost no effort. Once the beak cuts the prey apart, the squid's radula, a tongue covered in backwards pointing teeth, grind it down before swallowing. But even if somehow a giant squid went to an Antarctic ocean, it would never come across a colossal squid because even though they're both deep-sea creatures, colossals live thousands of meters deeper. Colossals are a part of the abyssal zone, whereas giant squids live more in the midnight zone. It's a little sad to think, but colossals and giant squids will never know they have another huge squid cousin. But oddly enough, there is one creature aware that both these squids exist, besides us: the sperm whale. Sperm whales are the only predators large enough, strong enough, and dive deep enough to regularly hunt both species. Scars from suction cups and hooks have been found all over their heads. And inside whale stomachs, scientists have found beaks from both giant and colossal squids, the only parts that can be digested. In the sperm whale's mind, convergent evolution is actually perfect. The more absolutely monstrous squid species that evolve, the better, since they can just continue to dive deep and snuff them up. They don't really care whether the squids have hooks or suckers or are 500 or 1,000 pounds. And this is one fault of convergent evolution. If they converge and make the same animal that seems to work, they'll usually share the same weakness, and in this case, it's sperm whales. What happens is an arms race, where these squids continue to get larger and faster to avoid being eaten, while sperm whales continue evolving to be able to dive deeper and hold their breath longer to hunt more squids. They both push each other to their limits. Convergent evolution isn't really about making more cool giant monsters. It's that the giant squid design works. We've seen this effect in many other animals too. Sharks and dolphins both ended up with the same torpedo-shaped bodies for fast swimming. Bats and birds both evolved wings completely separately. Evolution is constantly developing new blueprints for these working designs. All the animals we see today are designs of life forms that work, which includes the absolutely massive squid design. So what would it take for a third squid to use the massive squid design to evolve? Basically the same conditions that made the first two. You need an environment that's dark, or cold, or full of pressure, or all of the above. And honestly, we might already be seeing early versions of that happening. There are a few lesser-known squids that seem like they're halfway there, like the Dana octopus squid or the robust club hook squid. If you throw some squids in the deep sea and force them to adapt, in millions of years you might see something come out of it called, like, an absolutely huge squid, or maybe a mega colossal squid.